Hey, so today I was in the OR. Um, I had two patients. Both were gynecology, oncology patients. Um, the first one had a full hysterectomy um, that was removed, and due to being having a mass on her ovary and on her uterus. While the surgeon was operating, um, the nurse took the samples, and I got to see how they put different samples in different containers. Some of them get put in a solution, and then others just get put in a container by itself, and then it was sent to the frozen section, which is like the pathology that's right there on the OR floor. And then while we were there, and the surgeon was still operating, they called in and spoke to the nurse and let the nurse know to relay the message that the pathology on that particular patient came back benign. Then that procedure took probably like 2 hours. And then the next procedure was a little more in depth. The patient had a full, was scheduled for a full hysterectomy, but also had a massive hernia protruding out of the abdomen. So was also scheduled to have that removed and then have the abdominal wall repaired. So that surgery was a little more lengthy. It took probably like I would say about 4 to 5 hours for that one. And this particular person, she was an older woman, and same thing where she had lesions or growths that they weren't really sure what they were. So when they removed it, there was you could tell, like, just by looking at like the ovaries and the uterus, that there was something different about the actual cells and just the makeup of it. But so I think that the surgeon already had an indication, but when the pathology for that came back positive for carcinoma, he wasn't shocked. He said, his wording was, "That's the right answer," and which is sad. He already could kind of tell, I think, just by looking at it, but he ended up having to remove a lot of her lymph nodes in the groin and abdomen area as well. Hopefully they got it all. According to what he saw, it hadn't spread past the uterus. So that's good, at least. And then the other surgeon came in and finished up the procedure by just kind of repairing some of that abdominal wall. I watched them put in like drain lines. She had 2 drain lines coming out of her abdomen, and and then I got to watch them stitch up everybody, the documentation. It was just overall a really cool experience to see the teamwork and how they, the counting was a hugely important thing to make sure that. So one of the nurses' jobs is to get with the surgical tech and count every instrument and check off before you start. And then they, depending on how massive the surgery is, they will do one kind of like a little towards the end, and then they'll do a third one after the patient is almost closed up. So obviously the sponges and things like that, they want to make sure that they don't get left behind in the patient. So that was one of the biggest things. And then my nurse was kind of like floating around. He wasn't sterile. So he was the one, if they needed more things, he'd go grab it, open it up, and hand it, for the surgical tech to grab, to keep that sterile field going. So it was overall it was a really neat experience to see like what actually goes into it, the timing of everything, meeting the patient before they're brought back to the OR, seeing the CRNAs, with the anesthesia. We had to leave the room when they were intubating just for protection. And then, then everybody went back in. So it was just, even to the part where they were waking them up and transferring them back over to, the transport bed. It was really cool to see. So I look forward to next week, and I will see you guys then.